Welcome, everyone. It's hard to believe that tonight we gather to celebrate Daisy Freed's tenure as WCU's Poetry Center's Fall 2020 Poet in Residence. Before I introduce tonight's readers, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the incredible teams that I've had the pleasure of working with. I want to start with my team from the College of Arts and Humanities. Our Poetry Center intern, Emma Piccinini, has done an incredible job. Cindy Pila, the Poetry Center's administrative liaison, and Seth Birch, digital content specialist, have been indispensable. I'm grateful for the encouragement of Senior Associate Dean Kay Hajan Yoon and the support of the College of Arts and Humanities Dean Jen Bacon. The Poetry Center is supported by two very important councils, the Faculty Advisory Council, chaired by my colleague in English, Christine Irvin, and whose membership includes Kate Stewart, Maureen McVeigh Trainer, Christopher Benedict, Martin Delago, Leonard Kelly, Nancy Pearson, and Sophia Vilsius, as well as the Poetry Center's Advisory Council, chaired by Associate Dean Yoon, whose membership includes Keen Spencer and Kyle Spencer, Rena Espillat, George Reitnauer, Jeff Harden, Maureen McVeigh Trainer, and Kate Wickersham, our liaison with the WCU Foundation. David Urbany, director of the SSI bookstore, has been a tremendous resource, and my colleagues in the Department of English, especially the chair, Erin Hurt, and our administrator, Sarah Paler, and the director of graduate studies, Eleanor Shevlin. To open up our celebration tonight, we'll have three students read, one from Languages and Cultures, the French department there, English/creative writing, and theater. I will introduce them in the order of their appearance. Janie McNeil is an English major and the winner of 2 Iris and Spencer Awards. Bex Smith is a senior theater major and a minor in women's and gender studies. They will be reading an original piece entitled Ignored Home. And Sarah Stavely is vice president of the French Club and will be reading from Baudelaire's Le Crépuscule du Matin. So we'll start with our student readers. Janie, would you like to start?
Sure. I heard you say a piece, and I saw the email late for me to make a selection on what I was reading. So am I reading my own piece or am I reading?
You can read your own piece.
Ah, muy bien. Your hate for me is cowardly. Though your emotions are without cause, you still do not pause. Nurturing your fear, so reality cannot get near. You put into action the will of opposing factions. Think if I were gone, how you would get along. Those of you who are poor would still have no more. Some selfish slob would still not give you a job, even if you got down on your knees on the ground. His lack of sympathy has nothing to do with me. He is more likely to laugh than to make a path. He cares not for you because you are Italian, Irish, or Jew, or struggling and suffer from some malady or other. There is no reason for their hate, blind acceptance, recognition too late. Their direction to hate on me was a choice as random as sky, rock, or tree. You were lauded by the appeal of blaming me rather than your lack of skill. Lack of effort or esteem were at the root of your unfulfilled dream. The excuses they gave were flimsy, yet you followed blindly and with whimsy. And the second piece is The Scars of Racism. Our feet were too swift to render us myth. We evaded their pursuit. They had sticks and stones for breaking our bones. They knew neither she nor I. We were around 12, no issues to delve, no violations ever. Together we talked girl things while we walked. Dolls, candy, toys, maybe boys. unworthy of contempt, yet it was still sent without justification. Skin's hue for reason, hate knows no season, girls guilty of innocence. Tried chasing us down, leave their part of town, 4 or 5 teen Italians. Adults came to doors, cheering for the scores, catch those, kill those niggers. Blameless little girls from an unscarred world, by their hate scarred forever. I cannot forget, I have not as of yet, the evils of racism. Do I have time for one more or should I?
Yes, one more.
Okay. What we all know to be true about racism. Reparations were too difficult to afford, then why did they pay them to our perpetrators? The ones who stole lives and labors were financially placated to change their behavior. This was an alternative to forced compliance. Still, forced compliance was necessitated by the despotic, lazy ones resentful of doing their own work. If forced to work or do their share, they would terrorize the ones they spared. Agreements that held no reliance, they predetermined there would be no compliance. They would lie, steal, and create lack, use noose and fire to replace whipped backs. Their eyes would bulge, their mouths would foam. They would scream for Africans to go back home. They would burn houses and churches for social gain. They would pray for the KKK to reign. To make America great once more was the battle call to even the score. This is all from addled brains. They did nothing to earn these claims. Point of fact is that it is an oxymoron. A blatant opposite is what they swore on. If they really thought their race to be better, they would allow them to progress unfettered. That they cheat shows their knowledge of defeat. If they were destined to win, there'd be no need to sin. One does not cheat because they are winning. You lie, steal, and cheat to hide your defeat. They contributed nothing but envy, evil, and hate, destructive behavior which evaporates. Any benefit claim or any good part, they poisoned our nation with their evil hearts. The ones who should leave, those should be you, who claim to be building but who devastation runs through. You built only a reputation for greed. You cry over your deaths while your genocides breed. You are the devil's work and should receive the devil's reward. True reparations for you would send you to Hades' shores. You greedy, sadistic bastards, you rapists, you molesters, you lazy performers, you unfunny jesters, you thieving bankers, you biased offenders, you racist judges, you accusing defenders, you brave cowards, cowardly brave. You still are of reparations that to you were not old. Your thefts had rendered you less than whole. Dual personalities, dual reputations, stolen earnings made. The things you have stolen cause you to degrade. The lies you tell do not do you well. Your lying lips reveal your abusive heel. Your propensity for rape shows you the whore. Your stolen riches make you poor. Your foaming mouth and snarling teeth demonstrate you are the beast. Impurity, crying, spouting lies, denying what all know to be true. The despotic, lying, sadistic beast is you.
Thank you, Janie. And now, Sarah Stavely?
Hello, I'm reading this on behalf of French Club today. This is a poem wrote by Foie. It's titled Le Matin. La Diane chantait dans la cour des casernés, et le vent du matin soufflait sur la lanterne. C'était l'heure où les ans de réveil malfaisant. Tour sur leur oreille les bronzes adolescent, ou comme un œil sanglant qui palpite et qui bouge. La lampe sur la jour fait une tache rouge, ou lampe sous le poids du corps revêche et l'or. Imitueux les combats de la lampe et du jour. Comme un visage et pleure que le brisé a Suisse. L'air est plein de fruissants, de choix qui foisonnent. Les maisons, c'est la commencer à fumer. Les fameux de plaisir à paupières le livide. Bouche ouverte, dormier, le leur sommeil stupide. Les pauvres traînant l'air sain, maîtrisé froid. Souffler sur les taisons et souffler sur les doigts, c'était l'air au permis, les froids et les lazines. Ces gréolets de l'air, des fameux à Jésus, comme un sanglot coupé par une sang accumulé. Le char du coq, à loin, déchirait l'air brumeux. En humeur de brouillard, prenait les édifices. Et les connaissants, dans le fondé hospice, puisaient le dernier rallon aux quais inégaux. Les débauchés rentraient, brisés par le travail. L'horreur et crouletant enrobé rose et vert. C'est censé lentement sur la sienne désert, et le sombre Paris en s'affrontant les yeux. Empoigner ses outils, veillard la poison. Merci.
Merci, Sarah. Thank you. And now Beck Smith.
This is a piece called Ignored Home. I grew up with the fields of the three sisters, tall women with plump children twisted with love. I'm a product of where I come from. I was bathed in honeysuckled and black-eyed Susans. My hips are as curved as the hills, and my heart is as jagged as the cliffside. I was painted by the river, with eyes the color of water before a summer rain and hair a summer evening. I was dressed in yes sirs and no ma'ams, and Sundays were family dinners. Holidays spent in the kitchen, no questions asked. Based on my sex or my skills, the two go hand in hand. My name is Princess, Baby, Honey, Baby Cakes, Hun, and Sugar. Rebecca is a forgotten stranger. Becca Ann is a passerby. Becca is a visitor. There are things you don't know, and there are things you don't hear. You don't hear the place I grew up. My accent is rooted in the ugly. It was conceived in the tobacco plantations. It flourished in the swamps and the marshes. It is camouflaged in conformity. It hides behind tall town buildings. It is lost in brick walkways. It peaks with anger and love and intoxication. It was almost my future. Marriage at 18 to a boy I didn't love, a baby at 20, a divorce at 40, or widowed, for whoever escaped first. My accent lives in the ugly, a prison with a stereotype attached. It is my forgotten culture, my ignored home. Thank you.
Thank you, Bex. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Janie. What a wonderful way to begin this evening. I would like now to introduce Daisy Freed. I feel as though I've read Daisy Freed's bio so many times that I think we have it all committed to memory. So instead, I'm going to tell you about all of the ways that Daisy's virtual residency has enriched our university community. Daisy has talked with our creative writing classes about revision, led an African American literary theory class in a discussion of Langston Hughes's Montage for a Dream Deferred, delved into the intricacies of performance with theater students, talked about the challenges of translation with the French Club. Daisy gave 2 public lectures, one entitled Singing in the Dark Times, which was quite apropos for it was held during election week and had been inspired by the previous presidential election in 2016, and a craft talk on coolness. And not to mention that, but her opening and closing readings were also, her opening reading was fantastic, and we're getting ready for an amazing closing reading. Daisy has brought precision, clarity of purpose, and good humor to our diverse community of critics and creatives. We have reveled in poetry's possibility, especially in these challenging times, and for that, we are very grateful. At the end of Daisy's reading, we will have a question and answer period. Please use the chat feature to ask questions, and the host, Cindy Pila, and myself will share your questions with Daisy. Also, we would like to remind you that we're selling her books online, and the link will be in the chat. And we have signed book plates, so that is a new thing. So you can have a signed book by Daisy Freed. And so without further ado, Daisy, please help me to welcome Daisy Freed.
Thank you so much, Charisse.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Cindy and Seth and Emma, and there's a lot of faculty and staff and students who have been wonderful hosts here. I'm really, truly grateful to have been part of this. So I'm here with, you can see the back of my cat, Felix. He may stay there or he may not. My daughter is minding the kittens upstairs, so we probably will not have our internet knocked out tonight. I'm going to just start with a poem that is made up of a series of shorter poems. There's a narrative going through the thing in the voice of a teacher of poetry, writing, and literature at a Catholic college. I don't know where I would have gotten that idea for a speaker. But at this college, there's a crucifix in every room. And the teacher is not a Christian of any kind. And she's also thinking about soldiers and war and basically all kinds of things that pop into her mind. But the thing is, in this narrative, as she says, so stupid and harried, that's a quote from the poem, that she's having a hard time getting her own writing done. And so she does the prompts that she assigns her students. And as a result, she writes a series of poems, or at least drafts of poems. And these drafts interrupt her narrative of the classroom. So the poem goes back and forth between the main narrative and these interrupting drafts the speaker has written to her own prompts. And I'll just say that I've always been interested in how far you can make a poem digress and still make sense, music, and meaning. I've talked to students the past few weeks who say they much prefer poems to be short. And believe me, I get that. Maybe think of this poem as a poem that is constantly trying to shut down the story that it's telling and become lyric and become short, not successfully. But here's what Italo Calvino says about digression. Quote, "The digression is a strategy for putting off the ending, a multiplying of time within the work, a perpetual evasion or flight. Flight from what? From death, of course." So not to spend too much time in advance of the poem, here's the poem. This is called The Deposition. And that, of course, is when they take Jesus down from the cross after he's died. The Deposition. 1. I get to school early, take down the crucifix. There's one in every campus room. I lift it gently from its hook, push it into the AV desk among paper clips and wires, or stand it on a high sill, turn Jesus to look at the rain. Or under the flap you lift to adjust the thermostat where he vibrates a little when the heat turns off. I like Jesus fine, just not when he's being tortured. Every day somebody hangs him beside the whiteboard, I don't know who. It's like I'm playing a game at a distance, like Words with Friends against people I haven't met. Lately, my life's been so stupid and harried, I've been doing the prompts I give my class. Prompt. Dramatic monologue from the perspective of someone talking about their work. Let it comment on something from your day. And so this is in the voice. This is the poem that the speaker of the poem writes that interrupts her own narrative. So this is in the voice of the sculptor of the crucifixes. My maquette. My money job is making models for mass production. Cat with Tiara, Hobbit, Harriet Tubman, Polar Bear on Ice Floe. I'm doing a crucifix series, Jesus sagging on the cross, red gash to be painted in his side. He looks like a diving trophy figure wrung off his base. Loincloth in place of a Speedo, crown of thorns, not swim cap. I tried to make his eyes pained. I made the stigmata with my smallest hook. The college ordered 3 dozen, a dozen more for the seminary. They needed a new look since the scandal. I hunch on a high stool at a pedestal topped by a wheel like a lazy Susan on which I build, rotating it to shape a finger or bevel an edge, cigarillo jutting from my lips, getting smoke up my nose, magnifying specks clipped to my face, the better to see details. Picky work makes my neck and shoulders hurt. When I have a minute off, I draw sculptures I wish I could build, things requiring sledgehammer and fire, requiring courage and desire. So beautiful, this pod in my head of welded steel. I sketch it, sketch 10. Half egg, half chrysalis, what they give life to. Then 10 I-beams requiring cranes to lift and lean them cantilevered on an enormous pile of iron shavings. A monstrous nest, 10 mothers looking for sons, for daughters. I saved the drawings, some so delicate you can hardly see them. Someday I'll have a show, 4x6, postcard size, called All My Failures. I touch and drip the sketches with colors you find in the scum of a woodland pool, in the iridescence of a pigeon ruff, in the edible flower salad under plastic wrap at the organic co-op. Selecting my pencils carefully, making notes for scale and dimension, calibrated with prissy precision, even calculating costs. Then I put them away, go back to my Jesuses, my maquettes. 2. And we go back to the main narrative now. Wet weather, students enter, shutting up umbrellas with exhaling snaps, wrestle out of the diaphanous ponchos, none more drenched than Dave the ROTC boy in his drab camis, because Thursday is muster day, or whatever you call it, rain or shine. Watching the students is to watch for breaks in dispassion. Little blue gaps appear in their cloud cover. The girls are wary and ready to be praised, pleased the way girls can be pleased and wary of motherly women, not their mothers. The boys are comfortable, condescending, chummy. Have you got your brackets ready? Asks Rotsy Dave in NCAA season, genuinely surprised when I say I do. Professor, did you have a good weekend? Is your husband doing better? That's Lainey, shrugging out of her blazer, the only Black kid in the class, possibly the whole school, and she always remembers to ask. She's the best writer. Wilson from China unzips his motorcycle jacket. Over the weekend, I read Faulkner, he says. I think he even better than Kerouac. He's read more American fiction than me and all of my other students together, but can't write in English. I grade him on interest. Caitlin from Brooklyn sleeps morosely by the window in her black lipstick, Cthulhu print leggings, and cold shoulder pirate blouse. I wonder how she got here where the students are dutiful, kind, bland, mostly rich and Roman Catholic. Sometimes they almost catch me hiding Jesus. Sometimes they catch me. They think I'm funny or think they're supposed to think I'm funny. They don't say who it is putting him back up. They advise each other, don't take theology, required course, with a priest. You won't learn anything, they say. They mostly wear tiny crosses. A small commotion in the corner. Am I going to have to separate you two? I say. Frank Jr. and Talia, white kids from several earlier immigrant groups. Him. She stole my banana. Me. Automatic. Well, that's symbolic. I don't think I'll hear about it from the Title IX office. Prompt. I remember. Present tense. Mr. Fisher. 8th grade. I have crazy Mr. Fisher for science. Maybe he's just bored. Boys are harmed in all kinds of ways. He puts one foot on a chair, rolls his pant leg, shows his varicose veins. This one, he says, is Mekong Delta. Brown polyester stretches across his shoulders, a few sandy strands combed over his flaking scalp. A great teacher, he hardly teaches. He tells stories of boys he grew up with. One time, snuck onto a farm, stole 12 ducks, dug a shallow trench, and buried them up to their necks. Then, says Mr. Fisher, twisting his chubby body to demonstrate, he took a golf club to every duck head, whack, whack, whack down the row. It's in the 80s. The forests are dying from acid rain. 3. Today I'm talking about how metaphor is like cosplay, like putting on a pressed uniform or tailored skirt to sally forth in the world or in your heart and feel according to the forms, also beyond the forms. Say a girl's sneaks, I look at a girl, she looks back, are untied and gaping. Well, you could compare them to a dog in July with its tongue hanging out, his drool stretching from his teeth to the porch planks. So now you have a pair of, say, Air Force Ones superimposed or merging incompletely with the memory of the scary mastiff that growled at you from the neighbor's porch, then got up as if to come for you that one time you felt your mother truly protected you. Otherwise, it was always just you and your feet stung as you ran home. I'm overdoing it. Feet in fancy sneaks don't sting slapping the pavement. I mean, seems like metaphor could help us feel again, I say. I mean, maybe you don't feel that way. Maybe it's just me experiencing pity fatigue. They look back, waiting. My hands are made of desk they rest on. I lift the little, lift them away from Jesus. Prompt. Describe a public scene from memory using simile and metaphor. Which type of figure works best and why? Life is so good here. Barbecue smell drifts from over the river. Too much lighter fluid splashed in the pouring. Flares of sudden fire, parkland. Given, a family, dad home on leave. The kids lead him by the hand, showing him off. He's theirs. And mom, fully reclined on the blanket, angers and anxieties pushed aside, even evaporated. Brief oasis of self. On her shoulders, lotion makes windows of sheen. Gluts of garbage blowing around, a subtle stink in the weeds, the happiness of that other family. That time in the Atlanta airport, all the soldiers in their desert combat fatigues, deploying, redeploying, loping along in their big boots stuck out front like clown shoes, like goose feet down the concourse. The man on the loudspeaker asking us to stand and applaud for our heroes. Me frozen trying to think out what, if I clapped, I'd be clapping for. A woman with a collapsed face to the soldier nearest the gate. Thank you for your sacrifice. My family is a military family. He, sullen, blank, bored. The faces of other passengers formatted to show they understand everything, which looks like happiness. And what happened to us? Goose gangs loiter, obstructing the bike path, pumping their neck pipes. There's all the food thrown by the picnickers and left by the picnickers, and all the food the river brings with its floods and slithers of algae. Life is so good here. The geese never fly south. 4. The students I'm talking at might be listening. Rotsy Dave bangs his chair legs down. He pulls his pant legs out of his boots, wrings the hems. He unlaces. His socks are sopping. These army issue boots are shit. They're supposed to be waterproof. He fiddles with hooks. Gusset, I can't do this. I don't know what it is he can't do. What I can't do is work the tech to run the video I want to show. A reading of the poem with the girl burning that's nothing more than a list of similes that escalate till the girl's reformed as beast and dead and wind. Helpfully, Rotsy Dave jumps up to link up the connection, sees Jesus under the auxiliary, pulls him out, looks at me, puts him back where I left him. There you go, he says. Video light softens the room. The students make no comment. No one has told them what is okay to say. To the shuffling that crescendos at dismissal, like windsong ruffling underbrush, as if wind is fire and fawns and bunnies are running away. But losing my mind a little, I tell the story of a boy I met who enlisted at the height of the Iraq War, then came home a year later with no legs, one hand, 3 fingers of that one gone in the explosion. More recently, I heard he married, has a career he likes, a family, like a TV special, uplift for the wind, uplift for the win, feelings a trinket. I say, his body flew up. The wreckage and smoke and flames and pieces of his body engulfed him. It was like a god that didn't exist was giving a shiny red star to the world. They look at me worried, kind of a mirror waiting for assignment for me to say, you can go, or I'll be interested to see what you do. Nothing, but they go. Out into the rain they go. Take home assignment. Write about a life change, no punctuation, employ metaphor, address it to a you, break at least one rule at least once in the poem. I always loved the stratagems, the solidarity of those nights before we got all the AC window units in all the rooms. And before her, it was you and me, the weather too hot to bear. And you pushed the misery forward into something that could be remembered with a grim fondness. You said, let's just go sleep on the floor in the living room. It's cooler there. Let's just suck on some ice till our bodies take the cool. Here, rub some on your wrists. Let me run this ice down your body. Too hot to sleep, our girl says, crawling into bed with us. I say, did you try leaving your door open? I can't, she says. The cat will sit on the mesh top of the terrarium. He'll sit on it, then my snake will escape, crawling out the gaps again. Well, the other thing she says about the snake is when she holds it, it crawls from hand to hand, trying to escape, trying to get back into the substrate and hidey holes. It's like holding, she says, a liquid. It's like holding a liquid, she says again. Then nestles her curly head into my neck and shoulder, and it's easy to fall asleep that way and wake to bird sound, just there, sullen and banal in the leafy branches, rubbing at the window, let me in. As I keep rolling the gems, blue, red, purple, hand to hand to hand. What gems, you say? Where did they come from? Nowhere, that's all, nowhere. That's the end of that long poem. So, the rest of the work is shorter standalone pieces. So this is a pretty recent poem called Book 13, and this Book 13 is found is in Homer's ancient epic, the Odyssey, in which, as you know, the Greek hero Odysseus, king of Ithaca, tries to get home after the Trojan War. And you also probably know that Athena is the goddess of wisdom who is on Odysseus' side and tries to help him. And she generally appears to, disguises herself when she talks to mortals. So this is called Book 13. When Odysseus gets home, he doesn't know it is his home. Why does Athena love him so much? She, disguised as a boy. Boys are always wandering around. Swineherd boy, oysterman boy, pottering along the seashore. A shimmer in the folds of her/his crappy old clothes. That's Athena's tell, that shimmer, even when shape-shifted to menial youth. Athena's like, come on, man, it's Ithaca, you know. And Odysseus dissembles, says, oh yeah, heard of that place. In this, he reminds me of you, always in the know, when not in the know. Oh yeah, he says, and tells a story of a length we can no longer in this century tolerate, besides which we've heard it all a few times before, how he killed some guy who wouldn't do what he was supposed to do, then acquired the loot he's got piled now on the sand alongside what was his sleepy, stretching, maybe fake groggy, now waking self. Bracelets, earbobs, fanciful weaponry, heaps and heaps of drachma from the verb to grasp, its value that of a handful of arrows. And where should he stow it, he says, to the swineherd, oyster fella, young worker, not to lose it all again. And Athena's, come off it, man of tactics, her gray eyes gleaming. She really likes him, not just in a physical way, though he puts in her a forceful sense of his masculinity, cock, balls, strong arms and back ropey with muscle, mixed in with the notion he might be a good lover. He's a man with a brain and will use it. Rare. She smiles fast, flammable contortion of the mouth, strokes his hand, morphs into a woman tall, beautiful, and skilled at weaving lovely things. And he anoints his body with oils that trickle through the curled hairs on his chest, through other hairs on other parts. He smooths his mustache. That's his tell. Why does Athena love him so much? Why does she stick by him and help him out of dangers, even as his expendable crew is devoured, broken, devoured again? My sweet tactician. And why does she raise the fog that shrouds the shore, so that he is happy, so his breath comes faster, so there is a corona of light inside him? He is on the brink of completing his story, though still has many trials to endure. 10 books worth, she hopes, at least 10 books more. At my kickoff reading, I read a selection from my Baudelaire translations and afters, and talked about how working on them, whether I was sticking close to the original or moving far from them and turning them contemporary, that they seem to allow me to say things and say them in a way I'd never do in a poem that was 100% my own voice. So I've continued with that project, and I'm just going to read one of my new ones. This is Unloving Lies, which is after Baudelaire's L'amour du mensonge, which literally is love of lies. Unloving Lies. Oh, and the poem is basically a man saying to a woman that she's brainless and apathetic, but he loves her body. So writing as a woman and who tends to look at men in this mode, I've switched the pronouns here among switching around other things. So, Unloving Lies. When I see you passing, lazy bones dear, song sound of the band breaking on my ceiling, and you pause your leisurely stroll to look peaceably about, airing your ennui. When I think entranced by the way gas fire brings color to your faded face, like evening torches still lit at dawn, your eyes like the stone ones of women of Algiers, I say to myself, gorgeous, yet eerily cool. Memory's a citadel, massive it crowns him, and his heart, a bruised peach, is ripe, like his body, for a tale of love. Are you the autumn fruit, full-flavored, mature? Urn of ashes waiting for my tears, incense redolent of distant oases, soft pillow, or flower basket? I know there are eyes which melancholy give up their secrets, inlaid boxes missing their jewels, relics gone from lockets, emptier, profounder than you, dark sky. But isn't it enough that your looks make my heart, fleeing from truth, rejoice? Brainless, indifferent, what does it matter? Mask or wallpaper? Hey, I adore your body. And I'm gonna close with a prose piece. Perhaps it's a prose poem. Takes place in Paris on New Year's Eve. Trigger warning: foie gras and the cooking of foie gras, which is the liver of the fattened goose, or in this case, duck. So my vegetarian friends beware. Okay, this is called Arson, a recipe. Last time we were in Paris, 2004, we were staying in the 20th arrondissement near Place Gambetta, an upscaling neighborhood on the edge of one of the more multicultural areas of Paris, a place immigrants could still get a foothold. It was winter, and for example, you'd see African women in long traditional dresses and flip-flops, and their elder kids in flip-flops, and their younger children in regular children's shoes. And it wasn't clear if that was how the money stretched or if the older kids and mom had been born or grew up in Africa and didn't like closed shoes, while the younger ones were conforming to Western footwear. New Year's Eve, we planned to go out and see what was going on. No specific plans. Maybe down to Étoile for the fireworks. Maybe not, but definitely out. Earlier in the day, we'd been down to the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris and the hideous golden sculpted flame over top of the tunnel where Princess Di died, where to this day people leave notes in memory and dead flowers that wither and fray like autumn leaves all year round. There was a fancy schmancy street market nearby. Jim picked up a duck foie gras for our New Year's Eve dinner. He also impulse bought a bottle of chartreuse. Chartreuse is a spicy green 140 proof liqueur. It is not what makes Gervais die in a sodden heap of rags under the tenement stairs in Zola's La Samoire. That's absinthe, but it might as well be. This was pre-Maisie, so I'd read to Jim while he cooked in our dank one-room studio apartment. I'd sit under our loft bed on the one lumpy chair, and Jim would chop and stir 2 yards away. Have you ever tried to pan-sear foie gras on an electric hot plate in a stainless steel skillet? Ha! Jim's foie gras recipe. Cut 8 slices of foie gras about a ½ inch thick. This isn't the pate or the canned stuff. This is the whole liver, raw. Try to use an iron skillet, and if possible, get it so hot the skillet turns gray. Put the slices of foie gras down in 2 rows of 4. By the time you get all 8 slices down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, immediately start flipping them from the beginning, same order. Once you get all 8 flipped, instantly take them out in the same order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Use nothing in the pan and put nothing on the foie gras. Forget that raspberry sauce crap and whatnot. Eat it plain right away. It turns to molten buttery liver in your mouth. Anyway, this trip, I'm reading Tristram Shandy out loud to Jim. He prepares the rest of the meal first on that tiny bit of heat on the countertop. Potato pancakes, haricots verts, black trumpet mushrooms that will cook in the foie gras fat after it's done. Swear. He swears when he cooks. I'm sipping chartreuse and reading the part where Uncle Toby is asking Widow Wadman if she wants to see where he was wounded. In the groin. I could show you the exact spot, says Uncle Toby. Then we eat and decide to drink more chartreuse and read more Tristram Shandy and drink more chartreuse. And eventually it's clear that we're really not getting anywhere near Étoile tonight. Then sooner than we know, shouts begin to ring out from all over the neighborhood. Bonne année, bonne année, Happy New Year. So we go out and around the corner and there are 2 little girls alone, maybe 8 and 12. The older one in flip-flops and the younger in sneakers, and one of those mini scooters piping bonne année while across Gambetta and past the Mairie, siren rising and lazily falling, all of the 20th arrondissement's sapeurs-pompiers, firefighters, and their wives and husbands, girl and boyfriends, mothers and fathers, and their children atop a single fire truck, drunker than us, man, woman, and child, he, him, she, her, they, them. The truck looks like an enormous centipede. Now the firefighters of Rome are beautiful. There should be a calendar. Sexy da morire. The firefighters of Paris are not, but it must be said, they can party. The moral of this story is, if you are a pyromaniac arsonist, the place for you to be on New Year's Eve is the 20th arrondissement of Paris. Your fire will not be put out. Or as E.E. Cummings said in La Guerre, the war, humanity, I love you because you are perpetually putting the secret of life in your pants and forgetting it's there and sitting down on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Daisy. It was wonderful. All new works and recently published works. I remember reading the Deposition online, so it was wonderful to hear you read it in person or, virtually, as in person as we get, and all the rest was fantastic. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see The selection of Daisy's books available at the bookstore, online. Women's poetry, She Didn't Mean to Do It, and My Brother is Getting Arrested Again, all University of Pittsburgh books, to Pittsburgh Press books, and the cost of each book is $17. And I'm going to stop sharing. There's a link for that in the chat. And where is my, you would think by now I would be like I would be able to just manage my all of these clicks so easily. So please join me as I thank Ms. Daisy Freed for her amazing dedication to her position as WCU's Poetry Center's Poet in Residence for fall 2020. 2 months ago, before she began, no one had any idea how this virtual residency would work out. And I have to say that it's been an amazing 6-week tenure, primarily because of Daisy's generosity of vision, her creativity, intellect, patience, and good humor. Working with her has truly been a pleasure. As director of the WCU Poetry Center, I'm so very grateful for each of you for joining us as we have become immersed in this virtual programming. We hope that you have enjoyed it as much as we have. Please look for our future programs on our website. You will find information about the Iris and Spencer Undergraduate Poetry Awards. Deadline is February 1st, 2021, but as you're wrapping up the fall semester and you have work that you finished in a workshop or a project, submit it. Like right after you give it to your instructor, submit it to us. Our upcoming events include Crafting the Classroom, a Poetry and Pedagogy Conference, February 18th through 20th, 2021, featuring Black feminist poet and novelist Zed Elliott. The Spring Poetry Reading in early March will showcase the work of Jan Beatty, director of the Mad Women in the Attic Community Writing Workshops and director of the Creative Writing Program at Carlow University. And we will be ending our 2021 academic year with the launch of Craft, WCU's virtual poetry and creative arts festival in April. And our keynote will be award-winning poet, playwright, and biographer Molly Peacock. Please stay in touch with us to find out more about our new and exciting programs. And now we'd like to open up the chat feature. If people have questions for the chat to ask Daisy about, if there's questions in the Q&A, we will field some of those. And also I would like to remind you, in the chat, there's a link to the Poetry Center Fund. If you would like to make a donation there, the link is available if you've enjoyed the programs that we've offered. So Jesse has a question. Jesse Waters has a question. What have been the biggest challenges in translations? Keeping your own poetics silent and aside, or something more language oriented?
Hi, Jesse. How are you? In my case, I'm obtruding my poetics on Baudelaire a lot, so shamelessly, and making him write short lines and using Germanic diction where he wants to use Latinate diction, and sticking in Black Lives Matters protests when I want to, and adding all kinds of contemporary details and things like that. So in my case, I'm not too worried about it. I do want, like when he's being particularly dense and ornate and rhyming, I'm looking for other ways to get at language textures in my own idiom. Sometimes I'm allowing my stuff to be more decorative in homage to him. So it just sort of depends on the poem and my mood. I am not feeling like I owe Baudelaire all that much, so I'm being sort of callous. But I mean, so many people have translated him and done, much more faithful translations that I don't feel like I'm misrepresenting him. So.
Thank you. Let's see.
Oh, Amanda Newell put the link to my poem, The Deposition, in the chat if you want to read it. So
yes, thank you, Amanda. giving us that link. And also, I think she put a link to an interview with you and Plume too. So that's wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions people may have?
Yeah, Ann Michaels sent a question. Hi, Ann. I know so much has been going on in your personal life that must be hard to manage. How do you keep poetry as a writer foremost enough to continue the endeavor? That's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure how I've been doing it. I mean, I think that part of the reason I started the translation project was because I didn't have to confront the blank page that I could start with from somewhere else. And you know, so I had a subject matter and a kind of length and a shape that I could work with, so that when I had time to sit down and work with stuff, it felt doable, but also extremely satisfying. I do write a lot, you know, that doesn't turn into poetry on Facebook, as you know, in notebooks, on my computer, in emails to my friends. I work on a lot of poems that I don't manage to, that I don't show anybody because they stink or they aren't there yet. So I do a lot of writing, but finishing is hard. But I've been fairly productive this year, weirdly enough. I don't know why that is. Out of desperation, maybe.
Thank you. Janie has a question. Says, in a previous reading, you mentioned that although you used Baudelaire, that you weren't a fan. You inspired me to look at his work. So far, I am a fan. She says.
Hey.
And and then Tesla Weiprecht, says her question: when reading poetry aloud, do you have particular themes that you read, or that you read or try to emphasize through tone? Does your interpretation and reading style change depending on the poem and your mood? So this is sort of a question about performance.
Performance. That's a great question. I mean, I usually try to read fairly naturally with like a maybe heightened naturalness. You know, I'm not a big fan of what you might call poetry voice, which is, you know, which sort of kind of regular beauty that doesn't necessarily pay attention to the moods and the cadences of the poem. Yeah, sometimes I read a little bit differently. You know, what's interesting, actually, reading aloud to Zoom, I can't see people's faces. So like, if you were all in the room with me and I thought you looked really bored, I would try to like change it up a little bit, either instinctively or consciously. I'd be like, oh man, they hate me. I'm just gonna do something else. Or, you know, like, I don't know in Zoom, so it's hard to say. I definitely, if it's a poem that's funnier, I will probably read it more cheerfully. If it's a poem that's sad, I'm not going to read it in a really sad voice because that's manipulative, but I might read it in more of a dispassionate, quiet voice. I don't know. It sort of is instinctive, and definitely I change it according to what I'm doing. I don't feel like I'm acting. I feel like I'm reading, but I want it to be performative reading. So yeah.
Well, I don't think that anybody was bored. So I think you're all right, even though you couldn't see us. It was rapt attention.
I was just compliments. Yes.
Yeah, well, you got them. You know, I'm easy target. So Maureen McVeigh has a question. She says, Daisy, many of the students that you met in my classes are here tonight. Can you offer them some advice on finding or developing their voices as new writers?
Read a ton of writing, read widely, read old stuff, read contemporary stuff, go outside your comfort zone, look for the stuff that makes you a little weirded out and uncomfortable, because that's often the stuff that will change you. You know, learn from everybody, learn from your teachers, learn from your fellow students, but also trust yourself and trust you know, I mean, as I was saying in the revision class, and Maureen students were there, just, you are writing towards becoming more and more yourself, I think, all the time. So I think the thing to do is just expect it to change, and you know, I don't know, maybe try to put into the world the kind of poems you want to read. I think that's really, you know, like, what do you want to read? Well, write those poems, yeah, if you can. And just trust your confusion and the difficulty of it. That's what's supposed to happen. It's not necessarily supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a rich kind of fun, a rich kind of difficulty. So,
yeah, right. Definitely so. And Kate Stewart, everybody says they enjoy your reading style, and Leonard said he enjoyed your reading style, and others. And Kate Stewart asks, she was going to ask how Zoom has influenced your work and reading style. And she was wondering how interesting is she says you were very much present. So she was just going to say if you had any more to say about the Zoom.
I think Zoom is ruining my eyesight, but you know, other than that, I hope I've retained my eyesight and I'm able to actually see what I'm writing. Yeah, no, I mean, it really is trying to just get used to sort of not having anyone to look at is difficult, but not be able to calibrate. Oh, and then, you know, like people put things in the chat, and that's really nice. But then you're sort of like get distracted and you're like, I'm gonna read what that person just said. Oh, you like that line? I'm like, wait, where am I? Trying to manage things like that. So.
We can get the record. You can get a printout of the chat later, so you have your own conversation. Yeah, but it's true. It is distracting. I was thinking about that I was like, oh my goodness, all the stuff in the chat. It is bonkers. So,
and I'm so not a multitasker. It's just like, I don't know, you know, like, so.
Yeah, it is difficult. It really is. It's a lot of juggling. Olivia Macarella says, what advice do you have for students studying secondary education when teaching poetry?
Do you mean like learning, like studying to become a high school teacher or
Olivia, yeah, she says yes.
You know, I think one of the things that I think there are more and more good teachers of poetry, little by little. But I think one of the difficulties people have with poetry is that, you know, when they're growing up, like little kids really like poetry. They don't question it. They don't worry about it. They just find pleasure in the sounds and the rhythms and the, you know, the language coming at them because they're acquiring language. It's exciting, right? By the time you get to high school, people are telling you this is poetry's good for you. Well, poetry should be bad for you. I don't know, like, you know, it shouldn't necessarily be like church, right? Or people are saying poetry is difficult and you have to interpret this and it doesn't really mean what it says. And I think giving people a sense of fun in teaching poetry and not necessarily always making it, you know, here's your good medicine. Paying attention to what the language does, what the sounds do, as much as what it means. Because when I have to figure out what something means and it's difficult, I'm just like, I'm get scared of it. You know, I've developed tools over the years for, you know, figuring out what's going on in poetry, but in a poem. But I think the important thing is really to say, you know, when a poet is being difficult, why do you think the poet wanted to be difficult? Not just to mess with you. There might be a reason, you know, but also just to remember to pay attention to that the language is doing things. It's not just meaning things. If that makes if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you. So Jose Armando Reyes questioned, hi Daisy, thank you for the wonderful poems. You're also a reviewer of poetry. Could you say something about your stance and how you approach the reviewing of a poetry book? What's your approach?
Hi Jody, how are you? Yeah, sure. I mean, I actually, first I'll say what I don't really like in reviewing. I don't really like the gatekeeper approach. Now I'm going to tell you this is thumbs up or this is thumbs down, which is not to say don't give your opinion. I think people should give their opinion and acknowledge their taste. But I'm most interested in reading reviews where the reviewer is kind of giving a narrative of their engagement with a text. So they're an individual who cares about poetry, who is going to talk about sort of their own experience of of what's in the book, and I believe in quoting a lot and not getting in the way of the book under review, of not holding back if you think something is weak, but not operating on your own personal taste, not holding against the poet what the poet meant to do, but trying to evaluate how well the poet did what they tried to do. So in other words, I think just approaching the text with a sense of humility, right? Also, I'm not gonna tell this poet they're no good and this one that good. I don't think that reviewers should condescend to books, right? So I hope that sort of covers some of it.
Yeah, very good approach. It works. Yes, he says thank you, and says it's good to see you. So if there are, I think we reviewed all of the questions. And so I think on that note, I think we will, if there's no more questions, we will say thank you to the audience, and thank you to Daisy. And we're so very grateful to everyone for your goodwill and being in attendance. One more question. Oh, Jeremiah, this one we can have one more. Sure. And Jeremiah Oestreicher, to panelists. Do you think the situation of the country, pandemic politics, has had an impact on your poems?
That's Mr. Alicia Oestreicher, by the way. Hi, Jerry.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe that's Alicia Oestreicher under the name of Jerry Oestreicher. I don't know.
Well, welcome.
I'm looking forward to our Zoom cocktail next week. Has it had an impact on my poems? I don't know. A lot of what I write is pretty gloomy, but it doesn't necessarily, want to. I'm not sure. This is a really good question. I have retreated into the Baudelaire stuff, and I don't think it's a retreat in the sense that, I think it's teaching me things. I'm doing things I like with it. I've felt weird about life, right? We've all felt weird about life, isolated and things like that. It's very hard for me to say. I think that so much has been going on in my personal life. And if people want to know the mysterious thing I'm referring to, my husband died in September, and he was sick for a very long time. And in a way, that's had much more of an impact on my poems. And in an odd way, that having to give attention to that has been, has mitigated my sense of what's, so we're all shut down and the world's going to hell and Trump is crazy and, America is dying. Yeah, so what? My husband's dying. That's sort of it's a bit of weird perspective shift for me. And I don't really mean so what for all of that, but that it's been a big thing for me. And I think writing about my personal life has always been, in some way, however fictionalized, has always been where my stuff comes from. But I am always thinking about where the personal and the political meet up and how the political is weathered to things. I expect it to change my tone in some ways. Hard to say. I guess somebody else should tell me who's been reading my poems or listening to them. It's a great question. I'm not sure I have an answer.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an amazing 6 weeks, and when we started, I really didn't want to. I didn't feel like I wanted to. There wasn't my place to push you and say, "Are you going to do this?" And so that when you stepped up and said you still wanted to be poet in residence, even with all that was going on, we were very appreciative, and We hope that we have given you enough space to do all the work of being in this new reality and of, of of grief and also art. I mean, I think we're all in that grieving art space. So it's like, yeah, the world is falling apart. So what? My internal stuff is just overwhelming, and yet that's where we all are existing and being and making our mark on the world. So thank you so much. And thank you, audience. And if and Felix gets up from behind you, so you have a tail sticking out of your head.
Show your butt to the audience.
Hello, Felix. So thank you all very much, and we look forward to seeing you at other Westchester poetry events and celebrating Daisy. And one day when we're all back face to face, Daisy, you'll have to come out to Westchester for dinner. We'll just have to celebrate you in person and thank you that way. Yes. So
thank you so much. It's really been a delight.
Thank you.